We make our own monsters, then fear them for what they show us about ourselves. We now have the chalice lighting. O sacred flame, blaze forth, wisdom brought to life. Guide us with the light of hope, the warmth of love, the beacon of purpose and meaning. Because we are all afraid of the dark, let there be light.
Good morning and welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Des Moines digital service. I'm Reverend Amy Petrie Shaw. My pronouns are they, them, theirs, and I'm speaking to you from land that's the traditional territory of the indigenous Iowa people. Barb Martin is our celebrant and song leader this week, and Bruce Martin is our pianist. Carol Henderson is the pastoral care associate. So if you need pastoral care this week or have a pastoral care issue, Carol Henderson is on call. Welcome into this safe and protective space where you don't need to be afraid of the fear of the night or the arrow that flies in the day. Even if every other place is strange and dark, here you can breathe deeply and feel warmth that shines like the sun, even in the cold of winter. So come and let us be in community together. I'd like to ask that you keep your mics muted throughout the entire service, but after the service, you're welcome to turn on the microphone, turn on your video, and join us in the coffee hour breakout rooms. Thanks.
And welcome again from me, Barb Martin, helping with the service today, she, her, and hers. And just to let you know, everyone is welcome, wherever you are, whoever you are. And we hope that you will find something here today to help you on your life's journey. So please join with me in our first hymn, number 1 in the gray hymnal. And you don't even need the hymnal. You can just check the words in the chat box. May nothing evil cross this door. May nothing evil cross this door, and may your fortune never pry about these windows. May they roar and rain go by. By faith made strong, the rafters will withstand the battering of the storm. This hour, though all the world grow chill, will keep you warm. Peace shall walk softly through these rooms, touching your lips with holy wine, till every casual corner blooms into a shrine. With laughter drown the raucous shout, and all these sheltering walls are thin. May they be strong to keep hate out and hold love in.
Thank you, Barb and Bruce. Our Time for All Ages story today is called How to Catch a Monster by Adam Wallace and Andy Elkerton. It's going to be read by Oliver Stamper. Give me just a second here.
How to Catch a Monster by Adam Wallace and illustrated by Andy Elkerton. School is done. I'm heading home. It was such an awesome day. I got the role of Ninja Master in this year's school play, so now I'm feeling brave and strong and full of courage too. But I'm going to be a hero, then there's one thing left to do. See, there's a monster in my closet with claws, teeth, and hair, and tonight I'm going to scare him. He lives just right through there. I spot my monster right away. He's practicing his roar. He almost scares me half to death, but I won't be scared anymore. I reach into my bag of tricks and pull out my first trap. I'll catch you, monster, right away. It'll be a snap. Okay, he's stronger than I thought, but I'm not finished yet. I'll catch him in my super sticky ninja nabbing net. Ah, he just escaped again. But my next trap will not miss. I'll give him every trick I've got. He won't get out of this. I stare him and he stares back. His monster eyes look sad. I'm sorry, friend, I really am. Oh, please just don't be mad. I never meant to scare you. I did it by mistake. It's hard to play when you're asleep. I want you wide awake. So then I stopped my ninja bot and he pulls the bars apart. I shake his hand and then he smiles and he rips a massive fart. That's how we say hello, my friend. We do it all the time. Just take a whiff. You'll see it smells like strawberry and lime. And then he takes me to his house, which seems a little weird. He lets me meet his mom and dad. Is this the creature that I feared? He played for hours and have so fun and ate volcano pie. And when he throws me in the air, he throws me really high. Then at last it's time for bed. He helps me brush my teeth, but he squeezes all my toothpaste out. He's strong beyond belief. The night is done and mom comes in to tuck me in nice and tight. I'm glad I'm feeling safe and sound. It's time to say good night. Good night.
Well, thank you, Oliver. That was wonderful. Our special music this morning is the Dolce Telemann Sonata No. 1, performed by Sharon Stitwell and Chris Shea. For those of you who haven't been here before, I will tell you that we keep our offertory light because if I'm asking you for money, it shouldn't hurt. I should at least make you laugh first. So here's today's offering story. Kevin and Ryan, ages 6 and 3, were waiting for breakfast one Sunday morning when they saw a $5 bill that their dad must have dropped on the floor. As their mom was preparing some pancakes, the boys started to argue loudly over who would get to keep the money that they had grabbed together. Their mother saw the opportunity for a moral lesson, as mothers often do. She said, if the Dalai Lama were sitting here, he would say, "Let my brother have the money. He needs it more than I do." Kevin, being a smart child, immediately turned to his brother and said, "Okay, Ryan, you get to be the Dalai Lama." You know, they tell me a little child should lead us. So I say to you with great enthusiasm, okay, folks, you get to be the Dalai Lama. I want the 5. The morning offering will now be given and received through our link in the chat. 1/2 of this electronic plate goes to the internal social justice programs of the church, and the other half to our Faith in Action partners, Planned Parenthood and El Éxito. Thank you so much, Bruce. You know, I'm so glad to be a part of this community because community is what church is all about. We're a community of human hands and human hearts, and we come together to support one another through our laughter and our tears and everything in between. We come here to bear witness and to minister to one another as we struggle with life's sorrows and as we celebrate life's joys. I'd like you to feel free to share now in the chat the names of anyone you know who could use some special care and attention this week. As we type their names in, may the love of this community hold them all. May the light of our community shine on all of the broken places in the world. May we travel together with all those who fight for equity and justice in human relations. May the work of our hands and our hearts support and comfort all those who are marginalized and oppressed, silenced, or at risk. May we be called to mindful action by the needs of those who struggle against violence, pain, degradation, and destruction. May all those who are grieving be comforted. May you be comforted. May those who are tired find rest. May you find rest. May the broken places be healed. May you be healed. And may those who are filled with joy and laughter be abundant. Now together we light 3 candles. We light one for the joys and sorrows that we have shared, and one for the names that we've written. And we light one last candle for all of the joys and all of the sorrows which are deeply held, but remain unspoken here today.
Our first reading today is from Michael Wischegrod's essay, Explaining Theology, the Theology of Martin Buber's I and Thou, which examines the ethical responsibility in human relation. Buber's basic insight is the realization that there is a basic difference between relating to a thing or to an object, which you observe, and to a person or a thou that addresses me and to whose address I respond. In its simplest form, this is the difference between the way people usually relate to inanimate things on the one hand and living persons on the other. However, the distinction cannot be drawn simply on this basis. A person, as well as an inanimate thing, can be viewed as a thing, or in Buber's terminology, an it. Whenever we take an objective attitude toward a person, whenever we view him as part of the world and caught in its casual chain, we are in an I-it relationship, even though the object happens to be a person. The I-it relationship is characterized by the fact that it is not a genuine relationship. When another person is an it to me, I am perfectly alone. I gaze at him and view him from every possible direction. I observe his place in the scheme of things, and I find elements that distinguish him from them. All of this, however, takes place within me. I am judging, I am observing, and the external world is relevant only to the extent that it enters my being. It is otherwise in the I-thou relationship. Here, the relationship is genuine because it is between me and the thou that addresses me. This thou is no longer one thing among other things of the universe. The whole universe is seen in the light of the thou. And I appears, and it is shaped only in the context of some relationship with either an it or a thou, and can never be viewed independently of such a relationship. Buber goes on that the relationship is maintained with only part of ourselves in it. This is the I-it relationship. There is always a part of us that remains outside the relationship and views it from some vantage point. In the I-thou relationship, Our whole being must be involved. Should I attempt to hold back any part of myself, I will find myself in an I-it situation, because there will be a part of me that is not participant, but spectator, a sure sign of I-it. This means that the I-thou relationship carries with it much greater risk than the I-it. In the I-it situation, the part of the self that remains outside the relationship cannot be injured by the other party because he cannot reach it. In the I-thou relationship, there is no such security because the thou of the I is addressed with the whole of the I, and any response elicited necessarily pertains to this total I. In the I-thou relationship, therefore, everything possible is risked without any defensive position being left to which the I can withdraw.
In his beautiful work, The October Country, American writer and Unitarian Universalist Ray Bradbury wrote, "It's poor judgment to call anything a name. You don't know what a hobgoblin or a vampire or a troll is. Could be a lot of things. You can't heave them into categories with labels and say they'll act one way or another. That'd be silly. People, well, they're people. People who do things. That's the way to put it. People are people who do things." With those words in mind, please join me in 3 minutes of silent thought, meditation, or prayer.
Our second reading is from Humanizing Monsters by Casey Dorman. We often describe the most horrific crimes, such as genocide, in terms of one group viewing other as less than human. We are all aware of Hitler's genocidal actions against Jews, whom he believed were biologically inferior to what he called the Aryan race. When Hutus in Rwanda killed nearly 1 million of their Tutsi neighbors, they described them as cockroaches. Even the American founding fathers were only willing to count each African American slave as worth 3/5 of a white person. These are instances not uncommon in history when embracing an ideology that involved viewing others as less than full human beings led to systematic mistreatment, killing, or enslavement of people. But should we then turn around and view those who subscribe to such ideology as less than human? What does it mean to regard another person as a human being? Although many racist ideologists have based their prejudices on notions of inferiority, most of us reject such views. Some individuals are stronger, taller, smarter, slower, fatter, etc. than others, but it does not lessen their humanity in most people's eyes. We tend to see others as less human when we see the trait they express as evil, when they show themselves as capable of cruelty that we do not regard ourselves or any normal person as capable of producing. To many people, including mainstream Muslims, jihadists such as Al-Qaeda or ISIS, are seen as evil. They rape women, chop off heads, and they conduct deadly terror attacks on civilians. After recent white supremacy demonstrations in places such as Charlottesville, Virginia, many Americans view those who espouse neo-Nazi or KKK-like racist views as evil enough that they have become unrecognizable as fellow human beings. They have crossed a line beyond which normal human beings never tread. We view all or most members of such groups as, in the words of Cleo Valdari, hateful monsters. Now join me in singing Let Freedom Span Both East and West, number 148, words in your chat screen. Let freedom go east and west, and love both south and north, in universal fellowship throughout the whole wide earth. In beauty, wonder, everywhere, let us commune and find. Compassion be the golden cord, close binding humankind. Beyond all barriers of race, of color, caste, or creed, let us find friendship, human worth, our common faith and deed. Then east and west will meet and share, and south shall build with north, one human commonwealth of good throughout the whole wide earth.
Thank you so much, Barb. That was wonderful. As you can tell today, we're talking about the idea of monsters. What a topic, huh? We're getting close to Halloween. Great time to do it. That word gets thrown around a lot. We call people monsters. We call funny, creepy things monsters. In 1981, there was a nonfiction work called Danse Macabre. It was written by the horror master, Stephen King. The man is the father of the pop horror novel, but he took the time to write a nonfiction book. And the book explored how we as a society use horror movies and their monsters as a way to talk about what we as a society fear. We work through our fears using movies and horror writing. Our monsters have always expressed our cultural terrors. And this has been going on forever, since people were people. Historically, some of the indigenous people had monsters. One of those was the Wendigo. And you may have heard about the Wendigo. The Wendigo is a cannibal. And so what would happen is whenever there would be a terrible winter, when food got very scarce, if somebody would be missing in the morning and they would go to their hut or their house to see where they were, if they opened the door and found only some chewed bones, they wouldn't say, oh, one of us must have harmed them. They would say, oh, look, the Wendigo got them. And everyone else would agree, even the people responsible would agree that it wasn't them, it was the Wendigo. Britons in the 1800s, well, they feared Jenny Greenteeth. And Jenny Greenteeth is a fun little myth. She lays around in ponds. And if you get too close, she might grab you and pull you under. It was a marvelous way to keep your children away from the water. But if your child disappeared and drowned, it wasn't because you weren't able to watch them, as so many were not. It was just that Jenny Greenteeth got them. What a great get out of jail free card, right? It wasn't us, it was a monster. After World War II, all we cared about as a society here was getting back to normal. It was a national obsession. And it was a golden age of these scary movie monsters. You had Lon Chaney's Wolfman tearing it up on the screen, finding a defenseless girl to run down in the woods. Frankenstein's monster was Science Run Wild. He had the wife with the wonderful tall hairdo, because even your family wasn't safe from science out of control. Michael Landon's teenage werewolf showed up with his fear of body change. The Mummy, the Phantom of the Opera. I'm sure most of you could name all of these traditional monsters. Society is fine. It's not us, it's them, the monsters. Trove Studios Beyond the Frame blog said, similar to the age of the universal monsters, the 50s saw itself concerned with monsters, but not on the small scale. These monsters were massive, cataclysmic, apocalyptic, that would take over or destroy the world if they weren't stopped. Monsters like Godzilla and the Blob, the Martians of War of the Worlds. We're talking epic destruction, not surprisingly dissimilar from the bomb. Gee, there could be a pattern here. They were nature gone wild. The Cold War saw movies about pod people who looked just like us. And the late 60s and early 70s brought religious films like The Omen and Rosemary's Baby at a time when Time magazine had asked if God was dead. And non-Christian religions, including our own, had started to gain traction in the United States. Every country has these. We're no different. And these have exploded since the 80s with the rise of the internet. Anything can be frightening anymore. Anything. We have monsters with first names, Freddy and Jason and Michael Myers, Carrie. We have Chucky, who's a plastic doll, killer leprechauns, killer snowmen, sparkly vampires. We have homicidal trees. The world is frightening, and it comes out in our movies. But there's one common factor to all these. We get told over and over, they're not like us. They're not like us. They're a monster. You can't understand why they do the things they do. They're animalistic. They're dangerous. They're monsters. Using these fictional scares to help process real-world fear is normal. It's even healthy. Lets us work things out in our own heads. But in all that horror, even if the monsters are technically human, they aren't human. They're outside. In some cases, this is true. I'm not going to argue that a 19-foot tall rabbit is a person. I'm not going to argue that a killer devil doll is a person. The problem is the Martin Buber problem, the I, thou, the I, it. We put the ones who do bad things, the ones who do terrifying things, outside. We make them the it. And we become the I speaking to the it or speaking about the it. They're not an I, thou. We don't see them as a person. Because what do you do with monsters, right? You kill them. You imprison them. You wipe them out. You blow them up. They're monsters. They deserve no thought whatsoever. And that's a problem. Because in our modern world, we don't believe in monsters with vampire fangs that are going to leap on you. Instead, in this amazing fit of circular reasoning, our definition of monster has become someone who does something monstrous. Their behaviors made them a monster. They're no longer human. They're not like us. They are other. They are it. And when we use that, when we put them outside, when they become the it, Buber's it, rules don't apply to them anymore, do they? Because its don't have rights. Its are like the furniture. You can set your couch on fire or throw it away or get another one. When we put people outside like that, then the folks with the torches, the mob, well, they become the good guys. Because only good guys chase and kill monsters, right? It's easy to do. He's a monster. She's a monster. They're a monster. Murderers, rapists, serial killers, genocidal maniacs, ISIS terrorists, they're monsters. We hear that. They aren't even human. They hurt people. They don't have emotions. They're animals. That slope ices over so quickly. They don't act human. They take children. They'll get you if they're not careful. At one time or another, this has been said of Black people, brown people, Jews, Catholics, Native Americans, homosexuals, Romani travelers. It's even been said about suffragettes, immigrants. The myth of the monstrous, brutish Black man was used repeatedly from the 1800s on. You still see it in function today, this week, this morning. A Black man walks down the other side of the street. What's the first thing the white woman does? She grabs her purse. In the last month, just in the last 6 weeks, we've had one Black man who was bird watching peacefully. He got the police called on him. The woman felt threatened. She actually walked into the area where he was bird watching and called the police. He wasn't doing anything. He was simply being a Black man. Breathing, had his bird watching stuff, did not look threatening. And luckily, he had a camera with him. He was able to record their encounter. He didn't go to jail. Could have been otherwise. this is a really uneasy spot for Unitarian Universalists, because how do we stand against monstrous behavior while still recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of the individuals who are so very human? And how do we avoid playing the monster card when someone really does something terrible? How do we stand up for the folks who are getting the monster card played on them just for breathing, for bird watching? How do we approach those places on the web that are dark and frightening, that we might be inclined to call evil if we were so inclined to use that word? When we call a human a monster, when anyone calls a human a monster, they're avoiding all of these questions because they're making that person the it. They have become Buber's it, and we're no longer responsible for an it. We just get the pitchforks. Chandini Jha writes, monsters, we have been taught, are somehow divinely marked as different and devilish. There's something other, more animal than person. Literature and pop culture give us countless examples of humanity versus the terrible invading them. Where does that leave us, though, if there are no inhuman monsters? And we have to avoid the it, the them. What do we do? There have been all kinds of people wiser than I am that have parsed through this, trying to avoid the I, it, and to stay with the I, thou. And there was an amazing Hindu mystic, Aravind Balasubramaniana, who's a follower of the Bhagwan Sri Sartha Sai Baba, and that is a mouthful. But Aravind explains that his teacher had an amazing approach to dealing with monstrous behavior in the face of shared humanity. In his essay, Seeing God in Everyone, a Practical Approach, Aravind explains that we relate to one another as embodied human beings. And as we do that, we're called to remember that we have only that embodied, that human fleshly perspective. He compares this to the experience of seeing a movie in contrast to being on the set and experiencing the filming. And I had to think about that for a few minutes. Let's take The Wizard of Oz and use that as our example. If we're sitting there in the theater and we're watching The Wizard of Oz, we're watching Dorothy fight this evil, wicked witch of the West, and over they match wits, and finally Dorothy kills her with a well-placed bucket of water. We all shout hooray and eat our popcorn. Very simple, basic story. The witch's behavior is terrible. One might even call it monstrous. As human beings, from our physical, fleshly perspective, we're right with that. We can see it. We judge, we distance ourselves, and she becomes an it. What Aravind is asking us to do is to change our perspective, just momentarily, not forever. Imagine what it was like on the set as that movie was being filmed. We watch the witch, we watch the scarecrow, we watch her threaten to burn the straw man. But then the bell rings and everybody goes to lunch. And in a few minutes, we see Dorothy and the Wicked Witch having a soda together, maybe reading some lines of script. In fact, if you could have read their minds while they were filming the scene, they don't hate each other. They're just acting out a scene. They're playing out the role they've been given. And this is the metaphor that we're looking for. Aravind says this is the secret to seeing the divine, to seeing the human in everyone. Don't tie yourself to seeing only the role that another human being has been cast into by their birth, by their life. Every person, through genetics and upbringing and life situation, assumes a role and a character in this big play that we call life. You can hate the role. You can fight against what the character does. That's expected. You need to stay away from the set if the character is too dangerous. Some roles are a threat to anyone. But recognize that you are only seeing the movie. The monster is only the makeup. Step back. Don't hate the actor. Don't hate the human soul, the human person stuck in that role. This doesn't mean that you go cuddle up to an ISIS terrorist. I'm not saying that. They are what they are because of where they were born, who they associated with, what they were taught. They have been given a role in life by circumstance. They can no more just dump that and walk away than you could make the Wizard of Oz have a different outcome just by wishing it did. But realize that under all of it, if that person had been born in a different country with different money, with different friends and family around, they might have had a totally different role. Don't hate the actor. If they are so dangerous, if the role frightens you so much or is so dangerous to you, don't go see that movie. Campaign to have that movie stopped. We want ISIS to stop blowing things up. We don't want to see that movie. We want to work hard against it. But under all the lines, under all the makeup, under all the bombs, those are human beings. Hate the role. Work to stop the role. Hold the human under it as a thou, not as an it, not as a monster, because with a better script, a better agent, they could have been great. They could have been Glinda the Good Witch. They could have been the lion. We are all only human. We are all thou. And they are too. Because all the monsters are only on TV. Blessed be. Barb, you're muted.
We extinguish the chalice here that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light your path as you leave this place. May it guide your way until we are together again. Let's join together in the last hymn, 295. Sing out praises for the journey.
Sing our praises for the journey, pilgrims we who carry on, searchers in the soul's deep yearnings, like our forebears in their time. We seek out the Spirit stand we now upon the threshold, facing futures yet unknown. Hearth behind us, wayside hostel built by those who knew wild groves. Guard we ere the sacred embers carried in our minds and hearts.
Thank you so much, Barb. Before we end, I would like to do two things. Cheryl Long had a brief message about Amos that we need to hear. Cheryl?
Okay. Superman, you look like a big stack of chocolate chip cookies. Is that your new Halloween costume?
Oh no, Superwoman. I'm delivering chocolate chip cookies to our generous members who are supporting Amos.
Wow, how do I get some of those cookies?
It's really easy. Donate any amount of money today to Amos. You will support the critical work on children's mental health, affordable housing, and much more.
And I've heard that for any donation, you'll earn a thank you gift of super chocolate chip cookies delivered right to your door. Guaranteed to make you into a galactic powerhouse and maybe help you leap tall buildings in a single bound. I want to support that work in my sweet tooth.
Please give today to Amos. The donation details are in the chat box. Have a super day and thank you.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. Definitely worth hearing. Go into the world now with new lenses, seeing everyone for the person that they are. Be unafraid to look beyond mask and makeup, shell or seeming, and wherever you go, may there be love. The service has ended and your service in the world begins again. Peace, ashe, and may it be so.